outside of a few like really remarkable people in the world, like the Beyoncés of the world, no one gives a damn. Everyone cares about themselves. So we always wanted to try to focus on our customers and serving them and giving them the content that would bring value to their lives rather than trying to make ourselves celebrities.
Greetings everyone, my name is Julie Masters and welcome to another episode of Inside Influence, in which I delve into the minds of some of the world's most fascinating influencers or experts in influence to get to the bottom of what it really takes to own your voice and then amplify it to drive an industry, a conversation, a movement, or a nation. Now, if there's a few words this year that I think we would possibly be grateful to never hear again, then I think they would probably be these three: pivot, reinvention, and digital deep end. Yeah, that's three words, but let's just say it's one. I feel like for many of us as individuals and as brands, we went into this year, the year of 2020, with a long list of activities that we knew needed to be done. We knew that we should be doing, but with a general feeling that we had time on our side. We had at least a few years to figure out how to start telling epic stories online, how to compete with Netflix by making our pitches and presentations utterly compelling, how to transition our sales strategies to include new market segments that we couldn't reach face-to-face, how to embrace different business models like subscriptions, memberships, and digital tribes, and perhaps most foundationally, how to start translating what we know as experts, our expertise, our messages, in order to take our target audience on an unskippable journey. Well, those years turned into months, which turned into weeks, which for many of us eventually became days to turn around some of these changes that we thought we had years to handle. And for those who did it well, who will come into 2021 with a new edge that they didn't have at the beginning of this year, if you look closely enough, they all tend to have at least one thing in common. And that one thing is this: they, at some stage in that kind of panic period, decided to go out to the edges, to the fringes, to the people and the brands who are in completely different industries to theirs. People and brands who have been perfecting these strategies for years, totally outside of their own space. And they just paid attention. They paid attention to what works. They paid attention to the lessons that other people had already learned. And so that's what we're here to do today. My guest this week is Eric Bandholz. Eric is the founder of Beard Brand, a men's grooming company that wouldn't seem to be my natural habitat. However, I have been watching these guys closely for years now as they blaze a trail in what is traditionally known as an overcrowded space. Along with his co-founders, Eric bootstrapped Beard Brand into a high seven-figure company by focusing on, in their words, badass products, digital storytelling, collaborations, and building a community of fever pitch fans. As part of his journey into a new age of storytelling, Eric also built a YouTube channel. Go check it out. Dedicated to only answering the questions of his target audience. And for anyone who's a long-time listener, you'll have heard me banging on about the importance of understanding the questions of your target market before. Now, this channel has close to 250 million views, 1.5 million subscribers, and which in and of itself now provides a fairly sizable independent income stream. In this conversation, we dive into pivoting, there's that word again, from budgets to beards. Eric's journey starting out as a financial advisor and how he then decided to pivot and find his next breakthrough idea. The myth that if you build it, they will come. Anyone seen that movie? And the truth of it, that the roadmap is often more valuable to your target market than the destination itself. Why focusing only on how-to videos on YouTube was the secret to their success. How to forget the idea that everything we produce needs to be high production and perfect in order to create engagement, and why what works on YouTube, and I would argue most other platforms, is actually the exact opposite. And finally, authenticity versus intention. How during one of the most difficult periods of his life that we talk about, he made the decision and continues to make the decisions about what and what not to share. What I would love you to reflect on while you listen to Eric is how the path to cut through, it's not a straight line, right? It's a series of listening to your gut, making moves, reassessing, and building things when you have no immediate evidence that it will work. And the most significant moments, the ones where you take leaps forward that you could not have imagined, they aren't the result of a this plus that equation, or at least not in my life and not in the life of anybody that I've come across. You can rarely pinpoint the exact things that make particular doors open. Apart from this one exception, you have to start. You have to accept that you will get it wrong and you will probably look or at least feel foolish, usually for a nanosecond before we all move on to the next attention-grabbing thing. And in a digital world where everything feels so on display, that takes a level of courage and curiosity that isn't always easy. And the more you do it and the higher you go up the chain, the larger your business becomes, the larger your community becomes. I promise you that doesn't get any easier. However, as we've seen this year, for those who are willing to do it, to consistently show up at that level, the opportunities are literally limitless. So, on that note, sit back, stroll on, cycle on, find a quiet corner to open that packet of biscuits that you've been hiding for the next lockdown, and enjoy my conversation with the one-of-a-kind that is Eric Bandholz. Welcome to the podcast, Eric Bandholz.
What's going on, Julie?
So good to have you. So good to have you. All right, I'm gonna kick off. I'm gonna go old school with the podcast. When I first started, I used to always start with this one question. I'm bringing it back now, especially for you today. I'm gonna kick off with whether you consider yourself to be an introvert or an extrovert, and I wanted to put that in here today because firstly, it's a myth. I think that most people believe that if you're going to put something out there, an idea, a brand, a business, you're going to step up, be seen, that you need to be an extrovert. And I'm fact checking that myth because I don't really buy it. And secondly, because you created this incredible business around yourself, I think that this is a really interesting question to start with. So kicking over to you, introvert or extrovert?
Yeah, I'm big into Myers-Briggs. So we actually do Myers-Briggs as part of our interview process at Beard Brand. So I could probably dig down a little bit deeper if you wanted to it.
Yeah.
But I'm right in the middle when it comes to extrovert, introvert. I would say, like, if you had to put a gun to my head, I am an extrovert. I do get energized by being around people. I do like putting on a show. I do like kind of going to networking events, but at the same time, they can be exhausting, and I will need my recharge time with either by myself or with just like my wife. So, I'm not like exclusively one or the other. Some are kind of closer to the middle.
Somewhere in the middle. It's amazing how frequently that response comes up, that we're not that easily defined. We usually sit somewhere in the middle. So I wanted to start by talking to you about pivoting. It was an interesting timing. Around about the time I was doing my research to come and chat with you today, I got a question from a listener that was saying, can you do an episode on pivots, on people that have built influence in one area and then have to go and recreate somewhere else? And you started out as a financial advisor, right? Which is just a massive pivot from I just had this thing in my head. I was like, from budgets to beards. How does that come about? Talk to me about that journey.
Yeah, I would say my whole career is really just a series of pivots. When I graduated in college with a degree in marketing and management and a minor in retail. So if you just jumped from college until now, I'm the one person doing what their degree was for.
That makes you a rarity.
Yeah. In the process, I ended up trying to be a salesperson, and there's really no college degree for being sales. So that's why I gravitated towards marketing. Out of college, I worked for Dell Computers selling laptops and computers. And then I worked for a company selling networking equipment for Cisco systems, lead generations. And then I did another pivot. I did sales for a commercial printing company, so brochures and marketing materials. And then I did another pivot and tried a couple of businesses that didn't get off the ground, executive recruiting, with my dad. And that was during 2008 when everyone was losing their jobs. So recommendation for anyone out there trying to get into executive search, don't do it when people are firing people. And a couple other like e-commerce businesses I tried. And then I got the job at the mega bank as a financial advisor. And to me, like I've always been into finance. So a lot of these things may seem like kind of like big pivots, but they've always been interests of mine. So I've always been involved in financial advice. I've been kind of a shrewd with my own personal finances. I save a lot and I don't spend a lot of money. And then printing, I'm into design. I'm kind of like a self-taught graphic designer. And then after working at the bank doing financial advising, I actually pivoted into essentially freelance graphic design. So I was building websites for people. So yeah, I enjoy learning. Like I enjoy the thrill of, trying something new. Like the tedious task of mastering something is not really entertaining to me. I just really kind of like that initial sprint to learn something. And then once I get like 80% of the way there, I usually call it good and move on to the next thing.
And I think this is something that I don't feel like it's talked about a lot. And that's when you look at somebody that has become successful in a particular space or has stood out in a particular space and then become successful, it's usually because they combine all the different worlds that they've had mastery in before. They don't usually, wake up one morning, decide to start a business and boom. It's a journey where you're learning one thing, learning another, learning to speak the language of one target market or one realm. And then you come and you create a space where you get to combine all those worlds. Was that what it felt like when you decided to start what you do now? Did it feel like a combining of all the worlds together?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like there's certain traits that, it's funny you ask that question because I've actually said that before. Like Beard Brand is almost an extension of all my passions in life. And it kind of came into one company, like I built the website on day one. I was able to launch it. I did all the identity. I designed the logo. I did all the photography, all the creative aspects of it. And then the products, I love the products, grooming products that we make, and being able to formulate that, getting into, like our own little kitchen and making our own little products. And then getting into like the business aspect and e-commerce and building a company that can scale. And ultimately, I feel like probably the first roadblock I had with a business that was outside my comfort zone was really like management. I think like I have a lot of theories on management and very like philosophies on how I think management should happen, but it's not something that I'm really passionate about. Like I love my team and I love the people, but management's not something that's really fun for me. But everything else, and of course like growing beards and grooming beards, grooming hair was right up my alley. So it's been, really it's been a dream come true to be able to have this job.
Let's touch on that. Let's talk about beards and grooming. Now, I'm not obviously an expert in this field. I have a husband with a beard. That's about as close to it as I get. So what happened there? You've done all these different iterations, all these different learning journeys, and then you wake up one morning. And was it an aha moment? I want to build a brand around beards and grooming. Was it just a passion side hustle on the side that you were playing with that then just suddenly took off?
Yeah, it a little of both. I had, like I said, I worked at the mega bank, and as a financial advisor, they kind of encourage you to look a certain way. The way I would describe it is like an all-American boy, which is just kind of like a side part. Haircut, completely shaved, suit and tie. And that's not a bad style. I think it's a fine style, but it's not really one that I identified with. I remember like going back to my time in college and always wanting to have some kind of facial hair. I'd always experiment with different facial hairstyles. Granted, it was pretty short back then and I couldn't grow a beard like I can now, but it was something that I just always felt was part of me. And I remember very clearly like the counselors in college saying like, if you ever have a job interview, the first thing that you always do is shave. And I always kind of had this baggage with me that you had to look a certain way and act a certain way and shave your beard off. And then it's like, if you take a job, without a beard, then you kind of have this pressure to maintain that look and you never feel comfortable growing that beard out. So I ended up quitting working as the financial advisor and decided to, start this graphic design business. And in the process, I was going to grow my beard. And I had done like a couple of grows in the past, in between my commercial printing job and my executive recruiting job. I had grown out a little bit of beard, and I decided I was going to grow it really long, like 6 months or a year, something like that. So I was in this process of growing my beard that I was still involved in the business community. I go to these events and people would call me Duck Dynasty. They would call me ZZ Top, Grizzly Adams, all the traditional stereotypes of bearded guys. And those are all like really cool dudes. But again, they're not me. My hands were made for keyboards. I got some of the softest hands you can imagine. Like, I'm not a burly lumberjack type of guy. And I ended up going to this event in Portland, Oregon. And it was at that event that I started to meet other people like me. And I remember meeting like doctors and lawyers and entrepreneurs and salespeople and, even like a minister. And they all had like these pretty gnarly beards. And I realized there was this whole community of guys that didn't fit the traditional stereotype of what it meant to have a beard. And it was my goal to really kind of identify who these people were, who we'd end up calling urban beardsmen, and then you create a community for them, which Beard Brand was going to do. So Beard Brand created a community for urban beardsmen to give them the tools they needed to feel confident about their style. And that was kind of my mission on day number one. It just kind of hit me all at once. I was just trying to like describe who I was and describe what an urban beardsman was. And it started, so that was February of 2012. For that first year, it was just pure content. We just created some YouTube videos and had a blog and a Tumblr page, which maybe not a lot of people remember. But that was it was like a side project for me.
I'm going to pause you there because there was a bit there that I think we can just dive into a little bit more. You said you started a YouTube video, YouTube channel, Tumblr. Was it a very specific choice to start making videos on YouTube, as in to hit that kind of video channel first? Because you could have done a blog, you could have done newsletters. There's any number of things that you could have done. Was it that it was easy to get into, just set up a camera and go, or was there something about YouTube that really appealed to you?
Yeah. So the funny thing about me back in 2011, 2012 is I had no idea how to do business. Like I just, the concept, like I wanted to be an entrepreneur so bad. I was your typical entrepreneur, I thought that if I got a Secretary of the State business license, then I had a business and I was finally like an entrepreneur. And I realized that wasn't the case. Like I didn't even know what to do. So I'm your typical like ideas guy. Like my friends, especially back at this time, whenever I'm bored, I can generate more ideas than I know what to do with. I have this just endless supply of ideas. So Beard Brand was another one of these ideas. And I shared this idea with my friend, John Reisinger. And I'm like, John, I got this idea for Beard Brand. Always had the vision, I want to unite the community. Let's do it. And he's like, yeah, man, he's just like me. He's like an ideas guy. He's like, yeah, man, let's do it. We'll do a YouTube channel and we'll do a Tumblr. So I think he set up the YouTube channel or something, and I bought the domain, I built the website, and he like created some videos. Now he doesn't have a beard at all, and his videos were just like super weird. It's just him like browsing the internet on his computer. And his idea was he was going to like tell the story of how we were going to build this company, Beard Brand. Well, John, being the typical ideas guy that he is, like after 2 months he got bored. And he had like a little kid or something. He moved on to his next little project. And I'm just sitting here with like all these assets. So we had created, a little bit of content, but I'm like, well, I still like this idea. I still enjoy beards. I still enjoy talking about it. So after he kind of like flaked out, I just kept it going on autopilot. So, and then on YouTube, I had created this one video called How to Grow a Beard. And for a channel that had, less than 300 subscribers, it ended up getting, in my mind at that time, and I would say true, like it kind of went viral. It ended up getting, like 50,000 views or 100,000 views or something like that. Something that was like unreal to me at the time. And it was at that point I realized, well, on this YouTube thing, if people like this video, I want to start making more content like that. So I ended up like how to, style your mustache or how to style your hair. And that kind of gave me a little bit of direction of where to move the channel. But when I started, I never had a vision for what the YouTube channel was going to be or the type of content that we're going to put on the YouTube channel. We're just going to put stuff up with like no direction at all. So the only vision I really had was about the company, but no vision on the tactics or not even vision on the products we would carry.
And I think, firstly, I love those people, right? That you surround yourself with at the beginning of an idea, because you tend to surround yourself with people who are like you in the beginnings. And you're like, yeah, it's an awesome idea. Let's do it. And it was similar with this podcast. I sat down with someone that had worked with me for many years, and she was like, let's do it. We're going to make it happen. And then we made it happen, and her life evolved. And then there's this moment, right, where you sit down and you go, right, okay, this is on me now. I've got to do this thing. I've actually got to figure out. I've got to figure out what to do, what to say. Did you sit there before the first videos that you made and just go, I don't even know what to say?
No. I think like I've always had. Maybe I'm a little humble, or more humble than I should be, or something. But I never thought anyone was ever going to watch the videos. So when you think that no one's going to consume your content, you really don't care, right? You just produce something that comes to your mind. And like I said, I'm an ideas guy, so an idea comes to my mind, and I just turn on the camera and I talk about it. And then if no one watches it, no one watches it, and someone does watch it, then cool. Like that's extra special, and try to learn from all the data that I can get, but just have real low expectations. Maybe that's what it is. Not humble. I've just got low expectations.
But I think that's a genius way to start something. Just take the pressure off, play, experiment, assume that no one's going to watch us. And even if they do, they'll move on with their attention to something else 2 minutes later. Like, give yourself that kind of creative freedom.
Yeah, I mean, and the reality is no one really cares about you.
So true.
As much as you wish they did, like, any video I ever produced about like me or about Beard Brand, it gets like terrible, relatively speaking, engagement, so outside of the few like really remarkable people in the world, like the Beyoncés of the world, no one gives a damn. Everyone cares about themselves. So we always wanted to try to focus on our customers and serving them and giving them the content that would bring value to their lives, rather than trying to make ourselves celebrities.
So what did you talked about that kind of those first couple of videos that started getting some real traction. What did you learn about online storytelling during that period of time, and the difference between, firstly, you've got to get traction, right? And then you've got to get people to take action on the back of that. So two very separate phases.
Yeah. I mean, I think like I've never put any kind of strategic thought into storytelling. So I feel like it's something that generally comes naturally to me. Like, it's just kind of exciting to have I get these visions, and I guess the vision is the storytelling. And then I just want to tell that vision. Like, for instance, in the early days, one of our products, the name is Tree Ranger. If you think about it now, it's okay, cool. That's a cool name, Tree Ranger. But if you actually think about it, the way that I first used it, it was really kind of lame. So I had a friend in Spokane, Washington, who was a Washington State forester. And we would get together for like this beard club, and we would get together and drink beers like once a month or something like that, once every few weeks. And he came to a few events, and after a couple beers, like I could not remember for the life of me what he did. I could not remember that he was a forester. And I'm just struggling. Everyone's like laughing at me, trying to like remember, and he's not helping me out. He's not telling me. And I'm like, what are you, some kind of like tree ranger or something? And in this like, drunken state, like everyone's laughing, everyone's having a good time. I'm like, that tree ranger word, like that's a really cool word. And I think like those two words might have never been uttered, back to back. Like I Google it and like no results come up for Tree Ranger. And, the domain, of course, treeranger.com is available. And I'm like, you know what? I like that. So we've got a name, right? And then now we have a name, we have kind of a story for a product. And then what kind of fragrances is a Tree Ranger or a forester going to smell like? And clearly that's, like woodsy fragrances, eucalyptus, pine, cedar. So we started with the formulation, and that was our number one selling product for a really long time. And, we had this strategy of like, okay, we're going to do kind of like abstract names like Tree Ranger, where you don't know what's in it. And then we were going to do like tea tree, and then, which was one of the ingredients in our fragrance. And then we did spice citrus, which was more of description of the fragrance. And we were just going to kind of test and compare, because we had no idea if Tree Ranger was going to do well or if people would get confused with that and end up just going with like something like tea tree with what they're familiar with. So that was, a lot of fun and a lot of experimenting in the early days. But 8 years later, I kind of wish we gave all of our products, a name like that, because it has resonated so well to be able to have a story aligned with the fragrances.
And that's the being able to tell the background story to something. I think that's hugely underestimated in terms of cut through. There's the background story behind a brand, the background story as to how you got exactly where you are, the background story that your customers are facing on a daily basis, or how you came up with the name. Any kind of background behind the scenes story tends to get really good cut through. Is that something that you've also found?
I think what people will think of me, generally speaking, is that I'm authentic. And I think by telling stories and being vulnerable and being transparent, then you build authenticity. And your goal is or our goal at Beard Brand, I should say, is we want to develop relationships with our customers in a way that they know and trust us. One of our core values is trust. So part of building trust is being vulnerable and being transparent and letting them know the history of things and kind of welcoming them into your own world. So we always work hard to build trust and then try to keep that trust as well, knowing that they have the freedom to buy from us or buy from, like thousands of alternatives on the marketplace, including like no alternative, right? So that's been really important to us. And we also have most companies have like a 5-year plan. I think we have like a 20-year plan or a 30-year plan where we're trying to build a sustainable business that, maybe is generational. Maybe I've got a 5-month-old, maybe, and a 6-year-old, maybe one of them could take it over, or maybe one of my business partners' kids could take it over and kind of build a legacy rather than just try to build something to sell it and get on the cover of a magazine and, do the tour circuit, something that's just a little more meaningful for us. So I think it's, I think it's fun. I think you only have one life. So try to build a business that you really enjoy.
And when did you realize that it was a business? I'm just listening to you talk, and there's usually this moment or series of moments where you think, oh my God, this is a thing. It's an actual thing now. It's gone from being a little passion project that only I care about, and now it's walking and talking all by itself.
Yeah. So with Beard Brand, it was a very specific event that happened. It was always a side project. It was always an idea. It was always the next great thing from me that wasn't ever going to get up until I ended up going to a startup weekend event. And for those who aren't familiar, startup weekend is basically you pitch an idea for a business among, hundreds of other people. The top 10 ideas end up getting voted on, and you form these little teams. And in these little teams, over the course of the weekend, you try to build a minimal viable product or MVP for the business. And then you give a presentation at the end, and the company or the group that had the best idea and best execution will be the winner. So it was at a startup weekend that my business partners, Jeremy and Lindsay, and I were all on a group together. And it was at that startup weekend that we realized that we're really philosophically aligned with how we work and how we see the world and our core values. And it was at that point, after doing that event, that we're like, hey, let's start a business. Let's actually do it. The 3 of us or the 4 of us, there's a 4th founder in there who's no longer with the team. But we're like, yeah, let's turn this into a business. And the 4 of us, we were going to work with Josh. Josh was the 4th founder. He had this idea for a staffing company. So back in the staffing world, but he wanted to build this pre-selected candidate pool for businesses. His other business was in staffing. And then after working on that for about a month, he got cold feet and he didn't want to cannibalize his core business. So we're like, that's cool. We don't want to cause stress on your breadwinner. So I had Beard Brand, and I'm like, well, I got Beard Brand, and just coincidentally, a reporter for the New York Times is contacted me and is going to quote me in this article. Why don't we see if we can make something out of this? I've got a buddy who makes some grooming products. We can resell his products, and we'll see if there's anything from there. So it was a very MVP style build to the company. Like we put no money into it. It was literally like the $30 investment into Shopify store and in a promise to pay for the products. That was how we started. And it was at that point that I knew the company was a business. Now, the question is like, at what point does it become, a business that just supports me, or a business that just makes some money on the side, or a business that can build a team? And we went through like several stages with that. And I guess it wasn't until probably September. So we launched in January of 2013. It wasn't until September of 2013 when we decided to make a first hire that we kind of committed to growing something beyond just like a pure lifestyle one-man band kind of show.
And so I want to just hone in on that. So you launched in January. September, you made a decision, or you were looking to make a decision about hiring. Let's just look at the in-between there, because you've launched your website, and the next natural question that comes from that is traffic, right? Like, I think it's a big myth in the side hustle world and the entrepreneurial world that, build it and they will come. I'm just going to build this website and people will find me. And usually they won't, unless you've already got a massive list to start out with. What did you learn about getting traffic in that early time, actually driving people to the site?
Yeah, one of the benefits of building a business that you just love, like not just loving the aspect of building the business, but also loving what the business is doing for society and the world, is like you got all the energy in the world to talk about it all the time. I remember in those early days, and really still to this point, that 24/7, my mind's thinking about Beard Brand. Like it's nonstop. Like probably to the extent that it's a strain on other relationships that I have. I would internalize a lot of it, so I wasn't always sharing my thoughts on Beard Brand. But so 24/7 for like the first 2 or 3 years of my life, we're just thinking about Beard Brand. And when you're thinking about something, you're so passionate about something, you have no problem just talking about it. So I would just share things. I would talk about it. I would get on Reddit. I would get on Tumblr. I would get on YouTube. I would get on Twitter. I would anywhere on social media. I had more time than money. So I'm just using my time to talk about Beard Brand all the time. And pretty much those first few months were all organic. I would just talk about Beard Brand, and I would talk about growing my beard, and I would share what I was going on with my beard, and I would share what's going on with Beard Brand. And those things kind of helped get in front of relevant people and kind of spread the word in those early days when you really didn't have any money.
Are there any strategies that you learned during that time that you're still using now, or have they all evolved?
Yeah, I mean, we're a big fan of organic content. I mean, I think it's really, really hard, but when you have a 5 or 10 or 20 year outlook, then it just makes sense to invest in organic content. So organic content for us is YouTube. We have a couple of YouTube channels, and then we also do a fair amount of blogging on our website, and then email marketing. I think a lot of people don't think of email marketing as organic content, but really if you're focused on bringing value to your customers, then it's completely different strategy than trying to push like promotions or deals or sales or whatever. So our email channel is as much content as our blog is.
And just very quickly, there's going to be some people who are at very different stages of the journey listening to this. Let's just touch on funnels. Can you explain to me the funnel strategy you use probably in a couple of ways? First, highly simplistic for someone who's just starting out. And then secondly, for people who have been in this world email nurturing for a long time. What are some of the strategies that you use?
Yeah, we do kind of divvy up our funnel top, medium, bottom, like most companies. When we think of top funnel, our strategy is how do we get Beard Brand in front of as many people as possible, as cheaply as possible. That's the goal, is like, how do we introduce people to the brand? So to us, the cheapest way to get in front of individuals is organic. It's still organic. So that's why we put so much into our YouTube channels, into our blogs, is because it's just a great way to get our company in front of people. Once they're to the website, then you're able to kind of nurture them a little bit more. So you get the pixel that will notify that they visited your website. So then you're able to put some ads up on YouTube. So we do YouTube ads And then we'll also do ads on Facebook. And again, like we're trying to, they've just briefly had exposure to Beard Brand. Now we want to help them understand what Beard Brand is, what we're about, what the company is about. And this is the whole process of moving down the funnel. And really the analogy for trying to win a customer is very similar to the analogy of like going on a date or trying to woo a prospective individual. You can't be going for the home run, trying to take them to bed
on
like
day
within
one.
a minute. Yeah, on day one, within a couple of drinks or something. So we understand that, and like granted, like with a $20 product, it's that time period is probably shortened compared to an automobile or a house or something like that. But it is very much the same process where you have to build trust and you have to say like, hey, yeah, you want to go on a date with me because I'm going to make your life better. I mean, that's ultimately the reality. Like the only reason you date people is because you feel like it enhances your life. So the only reason people buy Beard Brand is because they believe it's going to enhance their life, and we just got to help them, understand that. So there's a lot of different things like talking about our guarantee or free swaps or, and everyone has their different objections, some people are more price sensitive. Some people want the best, some people, have more money than time, or some people have more time than money. So it's always just trying to get the right message in front of the right people. And to do that, you need to create tons of different content. And beautifully, like Facebook and Instagram, I guess they're both Facebook, but Google and Facebook, they've got great tools where they really understand their audience, and you're able to leverage that and get the right message in front of the right people most of the time.
And I think what you're talking about there is contributing, right? That you're constantly out there contributing. You're putting out valuable content. Even when you're retargeting with useful, valuable, contribution-based content. And I noticed, again, when I was looking into you and Beard Brand, there was something that was said that you had made a commitment, and tell me if this is wrong, that you intended to post only how-to videos on YouTube. And I thought that's a massively strategic, smart decision, because firstly, that's a contribution-based strategy. That's what we're looking for, right? Secondly, if you look at the way search is changing towards more voice-based search, I think in 2022, it's some crazy percentage. The majority of search will be voice-based, either Google Home, Alexa. And when we search using our voice, we search in questions, right? Like that's how we search. So if you own the question and the answer to the question, you're gonna come up top. Was that a strategic decision to focus on how-tos, or was that just, this is my preference in terms of a content style?
Yeah, I think, how-tos are something that we do a fair amount. We're not exclusive to it, so we will do other types of content. It would get pretty challenging if we limited ourselves to only how-to, because there's only so many videos I feel like you can make on that. But we do try to be educational, and we try to take, like the whole 80-20 rule of life, or 90-10 rule, where, you give away 80% of your content will be giving away value, and then that other 20% or that other 10% will be kind of self-promotional. And a lot of times that we can integrate that self-promotional content within value stuff. So a how-to is a perfect example, because we'd be like, here's how to trim your beard. And then in part of the process of trimming your beard, after you're done, you condition it with, what other than Beard Brand products. So there's ways of being able to do that where you can bring value and kind of like introduce your products without even selling your products at all. You just kind of like, this is what you do. You don't think twice about it. So I think where a lot of e-commerce business owners struggle is they get in this mindset of me. And I would love to talk about Beard Brand products all day long. And I'd love to, talk about our process and what we've been through and the decisions we make. But the reality is most people don't care about that. So if we did that, we would not get the same kind of engagement that we get. We want to be able to get the exposure to a larger audience that we get. And it wouldn't really be effective as a top of funnel strategy. So maybe it would be more of a bottom of a funnel strategy if if that was the type of content that you were going to produce. So it's not to say it's right or wrong. It's just how we've been executing on our vision.
I don't think that's just a challenge that e-commerce faces, the desire to just talk about me and my products and why I'm so passionate, as opposed to the questions that your target market are posing about your space. I think that's a challenge that goes across politics right now. I think it's a challenge that goes across not-for-profits, movements, anybody that's trying to get attention and convert it into action. I think that brain flip is really important. Let's talk about creativity. And it sounds like it may or may not be a struggle for you. I think for a lot of people, you sit down, you go, right, I'm going to create some compelling content that I can put out into the world that's going to draw attention or draw people into something that I think is pretty special. Do you sit there with a blank piece of paper and sweat it? Or do you have a process? Do you have some form of planning meeting? How do you go about coming up with all of these ideas?
I developed some really bad habits in grade school. I would say I'm generally, intelligent enough to like solve problems quickly. So the nice thing about being able to solve problems quickly is you can solve problems quickly. The downside of being able to solve problems quickly is that you end up procrastinating and you don't do any planning and you don't do any work. So my content, the way I produce, is very much that same way. Like I'll be like, okay, it's Tuesday and I need to get video up on Wednesday and I got no ideas, but let's just go up and turn on the camera and I'll just ramble for a good 10 minutes and then we'll see if anything sticks. And then if it doesn't stick, oh well, we'll just get another one out. But I'm never going to be one of these people who can just do these like amazing type of content pieces, because I just don't have like the patience and the planning skills to be able to do that. So but the beauty of creating is it is like exercise. The more you run, the faster you get. The more you create, the easier it becomes. And the more you'll be able to be immersed in what your audience is looking for as well. Because every video we post now, you're getting people commenting on them like, hey, what about this? Or what about that? And especially if you're very authentic and you encourage people to leave comments and engage with you, then you're able to start with those questions. And then it's just like a content farm. You're just able to just like, okay, here's a video, and just bang, 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 bang.
I love that term, content farm. But there's an energy to that as well. I think there's an energy to just getting up, showing up. There's a guy I met who just committed that every morning for 30 days, he was going to get up just in his underpants, make a video, not post it anywhere, but just make a video so he could get into that space of just getting up, talking, sharing ideas, structuring ideas. But what I want to ask you next is what I was talking to Ben Jones from Google recently. He runs Unskippable Labs, and I'm a huge fan of the work that Unskippable Labs do, trying to decode what type of storytelling gets attention on YouTube and what doesn't. And he was talking about this thing called the vanilla ice cream problem. And the vanilla ice cream problem being that what we love to consume as individuals is diverse, it's raw, it's real, it's quirks and all, it's reality TV. There's a bunch of different faces and stories and behind the scenes. This is what we love to consume. This is what gets traction. And yet when we're designing something to put out there in the world, out of fear and legacy, what we tend to assume is that we like all the flavors of ice cream in our content consumption, but that our target market only likes vanilla. That our target market likes, ads to be a certain way and videos to be a certain way and beautifully produced and high quality and no rough around the edges bits. And yet you've created an entire following around just exactly what you described. The energy, the authenticity of you getting up there and just sharing what you're passionate about, rough edges and all. Have you ever been tempted? Have you ever felt the temptation as you've grown to step away from that kind of raw bootstrapping energy into, a more what people would call sophisticated, traditional advertising world?
I agree wholeheartedly with that. And I've got a lot of things to kind of talk about that, like personally, like at times I'm kind of like dyslexic. I trip over my words, but it's been that way my whole life. So it doesn't bother me. So like I will upload videos where, I'll literally say the wrong word. And, like most people would want to retake it. And I think that's okay as well. I don't think there's a right or wrong to that if you feel like people may not interpret your message correctly. For me right now, I'm going through this phase where I've been creating videos for 8 years, and I've been creating videos on, beards, specifically as a primary subject matter for the content I produce. And if you think about that, Julie, how many videos can you make about beards?
I would say for me, 2, possibly.
Okay. 2. The answer is really 1. Like, how do you grow a beard? You just wait. And that's like the extent of all the content you can make on beards. So subsequently I've made every video you can make. And well, I'm sure there's new videos I can make. I'm sure inspiration should come, but like the big winners, like the home run videos that are really going to drive that top of funnel, like I've created them. What I've done to keep myself sane, for lack of better terms, is like, I recognize that I'm saying the same thing over and over again. Like for the past 8 years, I continue to say the same thing, but it's first of all, it's to a new audience, like people who've probably not consumed those older videos or the older content. And in addition to that, I'm literally like changing up my style. I'm getting a little more carefree, a little more bold, a little more extravagant, like a little more extroverted. Because to me, it's kind of fun. It's kind of fun to play around with this different style. And it's interesting because I get comments of people who have watched maybe some of my more laid back or chill delivery styles, and they see this new one and they don't like it, right? And they'll call me out on it, and they'll say, like, go back to what you're doing. Or I even had one guy tell me I was destroying my brand. And, I just got to do it because it's what I enjoy and in this moment of my life. And yeah, maybe I'll go back to a more chill delivery style in the future, or if I get different inspiration for different types of content, it may cause me to go a little more subtle. But it's just something that I don't know, is just kind of ingrained in me. I think I got something, some part of my mom's got it as well. It's just something turned off in my brain where I don't really, like, I care about what people want. I have empathy and I want to please people and I want to make them happy. But at the same time, like, I'm just like too blunt to actually do it. I'm just kind of like a bull in a china shop. And I'm like, I'm just going to do it. And then I'll kind of work my way out of it if I really like screw it up. I don't know where I was going with that. That was probably my most rambling, non-coherent story of this whole thing.
No, the thing that I took from that, and I'm just working through it in my brain, is that if you're going to do this for the long run, if you're in this for the long haul, and this is, like you said, something that you're creating a legacy with, then there's going to come various points throughout that journey where you evolve into the next phase, next chapter. And there's certain parts of your audience that will evolve with you and love it, and certain parts of your audience that won't, and they'll go find someone else. And it's the same. I think every business owner has been through this with staff as well. You reach a new iteration of the business. Those that loved the energy of the first bit may not be able or want to or be suitable to come with you for the second part, and it might be the best for everybody to part ways at that point. But what you can't do is you can't let that pushback stop you from evolving, because your business lives and dies on your energy. And if what you were doing before no longer energizes you, then it's got a natural shelf life at that point anyway.
Yeah. I think you really pretty much summed it up perfectly. I think I talk about creativity coming easy, but it would be disingenuous to make the listeners feel like that's always the case. I certainly deal with burnout or moments of lack of inspiration for content, and sometimes it is just producing the exact same content in a new way, and that's where you get that new creative spirit from. So it is a grind. Like, YouTube's a grind. If you're going to produce videos on YouTube, or really any kind of organic content, you have to plan on being able to do it for not like a couple of months or a couple of pieces of content. You've got to plan on doing it for years. So like, you have to be ready to struggle along the journey and suffer through it to be able to see the rewards of it. The people who don't have that resilience or that perseverance, they're not going to find success on organic traffic. They're always going to be spending their money on ads, chasing the next sale. What kind of discount can they do to boost their sales to pay their debts?
And you've also got to learn to let it go, right? I mean, I know when I first started this podcast, there was nothing I was willing to let go. Like every episode had to be edited, take out the ums and the ahs and the pauses and the rambles and as you show up more and more and more frequently, I think for me, just speaking personally, two things start to happen. One is you realize that, again, if you are committed to this for the long haul, if this is a contribution that you want to make, you're going to have to learn to let some things go, because otherwise it's not sustainable. And the second thing that I learned was actually it's those bits that resonate, right? Like it's the energy of it that resonates with people. It's not the perfection. It's not the tightly edited, perfect piece. It's the energy of people watching you in your process that creates a community. And again, I think that's massively underestimated, that people want to see you not in your perfection, but in your process.
Yeah. And I think there's a place for anything. You asked earlier about like upping the production quality, and we've started playing around with that, but we've done it in a way that I feel like kind of keeps the spirit of Beard Brand alive. You know, like it's okay to like get better audio and get better lighting and get better camera and tell a better story. Like you don't have to be, you know, purposefully bad. Like there is always going to be that evolution, and you should expect to grow. And I feel like if you're not willing to open up and try, like we've gotten into like product advertising. So we have just like, cool B-roll of our bottles getting tossed in the air or something like that with snazzy music and After Effects, but we've done it all in house. So like all these things are things that we learned in house and we grew in house and we're able to execute on, rather than, you know, this big, almost like doing something outside of your pay grade or your skill level. And I almost feel like that's what you need to aim to avoid, because that's when you're going to get burned, where your capabilities can only do so much, but you're aiming for something higher. And because of that, you're putting yourself in a bad position. It's almost like if you're a small company starting out and you don't have very good logistics built out, your crappy marketing that only appeals with 1 out of 100 prospective prospects is probably good, because if it appealed to 100 of them, you wouldn't be able to fulfill it. So as your company gets better operationally, and less of your brain power goes to that, then you have more brain power to go to creating good content. And it's kind of like the cycle where your operations and your marketing are able to grow together. And we've kind of talked about this a lot with my business partners is, like Beard Brand grew at the right speed, like the egotistical person in me and the really driven person in me, like wanted to grow faster than we grew, but what if we grew so fast that, put a toll on our cash flows and ended up bankrupting us, or we made a deal with a retailer who, went belly up, and, like all these things that happen in business when growth is your number one metric, that may end up putting your business at risk. So I think it's kind of going back to what I talked about earlier, is enjoying the journey. Because if you can enjoy your journey, you're there. There is no end goal. And, that's building a business. There is no end of business.
It also takes you to some surprising places. And that actually segues perfectly into what I wanted to talk to you about next. Your YouTube channel, I mean, I've got some stats here. They may be out of date. I'm not sure, has had nearly 250 million views. You've put out 1.2 thousand videos, 1.5 million subscribers. And it got me thinking that could well be a surprising side effect of what you've done. That not you went in trying to build a business, you went in trying to build a brand, and in doing that, the way that you have done it, which is contribution based, showing up based, authentic, real, you have also created this online community, which I'm assuming now can drive ad revenue. Like your channel itself is now a business. Firstly, is that true? And secondly, was that something you worked towards, or was that just one moment where you woke up and went, oh my goodness, like this is a whole new stream of revenue we didn't even see coming?
Yeah, we do generate revenue on YouTube, but we probably view it differently. We really reinvest all that. So the revenue we generate on our YouTube videos, we use to pay our video editor. We use to pay for camera gear. We use to just like really reinvest in the channel to develop relationships with other creators like Greg Brzezinski and Ben Wilson, Carlos Costa. All those are kind of like pulled out of that budget. So it's nice to be able to have revenue coming in and that we're not entirely subsidizing the cost of video production. So it does make it very sustainable to do in the long haul. And there's nothing like YouTube. YouTube's such an amazing platform to be able to just be able to grow organically, and not only be able to grow organically, but get paid while you're doing it. Like, it just blows my mind that you wouldn't want to be on YouTube with the opportunities that are there.
And I think also it speaks to a trend that I've been really kind of in awe of over this past few months, specifically during lockdown and COVID-19, as people try and find different ways to monetize, their ideas versus, the showing up that we're not able to do anymore in person. And I think we're going to see this massive new trend now of people almost selling their marketing, which is so interesting to me. I know a few people who have a huge subscription base. They put out a newsletter. It's useful, it's helpful, but it also promotes who they are and what they do. But it's got such a following that during this time, they've actually started charging for it. So if you would like to if you would like to subscribe and continue receiving this, it's $5 a month, for example. And I think that is such an amazing pivot point to ask yourself, is your marketing so valuable that somebody would either A, pay to receive it, or B, pay to be associated with it? And which is exactly, you making, deriving revenue from YouTube is somebody paying to be associated with the work that you do. We've never seen this before. Like, this just blows my mind as a new world of influence, as a new way of putting marketing out there. Do you see it evolving? How do you see that evolving?
Yeah, that's pretty rad. I mean, that's like, one of those internet memes where the dude's like blowing his brains out or whatever. It's just like with the thought process. What is it? I'm going to try to visualize it. There's like this
a brain explosion.
The brain explosion in different levels of energy, and like getting people to pay for your marketing is right up there. I don't know if that's not one of my goals. I don't really think of it that way. I tend to just be customer focused, right? So it's just about, how do I bring value to our customers? How do we work on our mission, which is to make men awesome? And, that's our goal in life. Our goal is not to drive more profits. It's not to make more money. It's to help as many men as we can become better versions of themselves. We believe that when they love the man looking back at them in the mirror, then they can use that love to influence their family, make their family better, influence their career, their bosses, their employees, their team members, help their business do well, and then ultimately help their community do well, be stewards of the community and leaders in the community, all through that self-investment in themselves. So everything we're doing is like focused around that. And then obviously profitability is a way that allows us to amplify our voice. So if we have a budget of $100 million a year, we can certainly reach more people than if we have a budget of, $1 million a year. So it makes sense for us to be shrewd with our money and to be financially wise and to be profitable, and any kind of opportunity or channel for that is something that we would explore.
Just as we come to a close, I just wanted to touch very briefly, and you just introduced it so beautifully when you said that, men standing up in their community and feeling good about who they are and the space that they hold and their roles and relationships. And, the first video, when I sat down to look through as many things as I could prior to this, the first video I came across, the first video that I watched, was a video of you talking about the fact that you were about to take some time out. And in that video, and we've talked previous to this conversation, and you've given me permission to bring this in. You were talking about your journey with your wife with IVF and the many miscarriages that you have had, and the tens of thousands of dollars and untold number of tears of that journey, and where that led you. And you were visibly emotional trying to tell that story. Now, my heart just stopped. Anyone that follows me closely on social will know that, my husband and I had also had a decade-long journey with IVF, and it was what led me to step back and sell out of my original business in order to feel like I'd given that particular chapter of our life as much as I could. And other than it just being an incredible thing to see a father share his journey on this topic, or a father in waiting to share his journey on this topic, which just does not happen enough, what really hit me is what a huge decision it must have been for you to start talking about it, for you to share it. Can you talk to me a little bit about that particular decision and what led you to it?
Yeah, well, what's funny about that is I am like a very naturally transparent type of person. I'm probably like, if you want to keep a secret, then it's probably best to not tell me. I tend to just tell everything. And it's almost like one of my therapies is to just, like, any problem I'm dealing with, I just start talking about it. So, that's kind of good and bad. And like from day one with dealing with infertility, I never had a problem talking about it or the issue of bringing it up. However, my wife is different. She's maybe a little more reserved than I am, and she didn't want, especially in those early days, she may have not wanted all that information out there. So, like, the early days were really challenging for me because I couldn't talk about it. I didn't feel comfortable talking about it because of respecting my wife's, how my wife was handling it and what she was going through. So, I think, for us, our second born was natural. It was, like the whole gift kind of thing, the unexpected. It kind of almost put a stake in our infertility struggles. We were cleaning out the garage a couple of months ago, and Anne was setting aside. Anne's my wife. She was setting aside these books, and I noticed, like, there's a whole stack of books on infertility. She struggled with it and read everything she could, and I said, okay, well, where do these go? And she's like, well, I think we can give them away. So it was like in the giveaway pile, and it was at that point, like, hearing that from her, I'm like, okay, this part of our, like, this was the defining moment that our infertility struggles were over. Now we may continue to have miscarriages in the future, and we've got one embryo left, and we'll try with that, and we may have another failure. But I feel like, it was kind of ending point for me. So I almost feel like a little bit of responsibility, given the platform that we have, to be able to help other guys and to help let them know that they're not alone, and to be that lightning rod for, the good and the bad. Because if you really dig into some of those comments, you'd get some pretty distasteful comments in there, and I can handle them. Like, I'm willing to read through those, and I can, deal with it so that other people don't have to deal with it, and so that other people will recognize that they're not alone if they're doing that journey. And many of it was so amazing to read how many other people who struggled with it, either presently or in the past, and, were able to have a family and grow their family. So it was for me, selfishly, it was a very rewarding experience to be able to connect with so many of our audience members.
I mean, for me, I read those comments. There was over 1,000 of them, and I skimmed through, and there was some, there were some beautiful ones, there were some interesting ones, but by and large, it was just hugely supportive. I mean, I've got one written down here. It just says 100% masculinity being displayed here, which I just thought was a beautiful comment to make. And I can understand very much Annie's decision that she didn't want to share, and that was kind of how I felt for a really long time. And I've heard you say this previously, it's very hard to enjoy the journey of creating a family when it's fraught with as many roadblocks and heartbreaks as it is with those that are struggling with infertility. And I remember my first child, I didn't even mention anything about being pregnant. I think pretty much just before I was about to give birth. That was the closest that I was willing to put that out there into the world. I almost felt like the universe had said that I couldn't have a sweet, and I'd stolen one, and I had it behind my back, and I just didn't want to show anybody in case the universe turned around and went, no, we said you couldn't have that. Give it back, please. And, I've become more comfortable, and I've had my son now, and, you use that beautiful language defining moment where you feel like, okay, this journey is pretty much potentially done for us now. And I'm a lot more willing and open to talk about it. But there's always going to be that line, right? That really important line between public and private, between what you share online. And, we're incentivized now to share so much online. We've got the shift from brand to human. The more we put out of ourselves out there, the more input we get back. But we've got to figure out that line, how comfortable we are with it, and also the impact that it has on other people, how perfect we show our lives to be, how vulnerable we show ourselves to be, and how that impacts other people. And I don't know that we've really come up with a common barometer for how to make these decisions. Is there a thought process that you go through that makes you go, yeah, this is something I'm willing to share? Nope, this is not something I'm willing to share.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it before we hit record. Like anything you ask, I'll talk about. So it's I'm an open book. Like for me, there's I could overshare. I could be one of those guys on Big Brother or whatever. Like it doesn't really bother me being in the public eye. The thing, again, going back, that I have to learn is just the impact on others. And I'm fortunate that my wife can ground me and kind of give me a perspective of maybe why it's not good to be so public for certain things. So I don't know. Like I feel like I want to create things that bring value to people's lives. And, showing someone how I toenail clip or something is not going to bring, value to their lives. And I think it's kind of like that point where if I'm producing content that can inspire people or can bring value to their lives or educate them, then it's probably something I want to share. But if it's something that is just like narcissism, where it's just like trying to pump my ego or feed my ego, then I'll generally try to avoid that. But again, I'm a human and I have my faults and flaws, and like I certainly post stuff that I probably shouldn't have post, opinions that I have that no one gives a damn about. So yeah, it's a journey. You learn, you make mistakes, and you get better at it.
Yeah, well, that's part of showing up, right?
Yeah, exactly. You got to do the work.
You got to do that. It's not perfect. I think that the line, and I don't have the line down at all. I'm constantly playing with it. But the line that I've drawn at the moment is the difference between authenticity and intentional. So if there's something that I'm thinking that I want to share, a part of my life, part of my family, a part of my story, I'll ask myself, what's the intention? Do I have an intention to help here, or is this just like a brain explosion, just a download that I want to do for my own reasons, to get it off my chest or to get it out of my body? And if I feel like it's intentional, I can really own the intention of it, then I'll do it. And that's kind of the line that I'm playing with. But no doubt this time next week, I'll change my mind on it again.
Yeah, I mean, like when you're in the moment, I'm okay with just being in the moment, right? In that moment, do you feel like it's appropriate? Go with it. Like I feel like if you're planning any type of content about whether or not to open up, then it's, I don't know, you probably shouldn't do it, right? I mean, like, I don't know. Like, I feel like there's a lot of life that you can just go by the gut, like it doesn't have to be a rule. It doesn't have to, be set up where, okay, I do this or do that. Just live life and experience it. And then, like we're all going to die. And then 2 generations from now, no one's going to know who the hell we are. So like, why the hell are we worrying about it?
Well, I think that's it. That's a pretty good point to end on. We're all going to die. So just quit worrying about it.
Yeah. A good uplifting one.
All right. Final quick fire. Just one question before we finish up. What's the one thing, if I'm a listener, I wake up tomorrow morning, I'm thinking about pivoting, I'm thinking about creating a business out of my passion, starting to create some content, starting to draw attention to something that I think is important. What's the one thing tomorrow that you want me to wake up and do? Step 1.
Yeah, I mean, so to all the people listening is like, what you need to do. You don't need to hear me tell you what to do. Just do the thing that you're not doing that you need to do, and do it. Like, I don't know, like, again, like what we just talked about, you're going to die. and no one's going to know who you are in 2 generations. So what's holding you back? You've got the opportunity to build an amazing life, to do something remarkable, to leave the world better than when you came, and you're not doing it. So why? I don't know. Like that's just kind of how I think about it from my perspective.
Love that. I love that. Well, Eric, thank you so much. Thank you for your time, your generosity, your openness, and for showing up over and over and over again.
Well, I appreciate you for having me on. It's been a great pleasure to chat with you, and hopefully the listeners were able to get a nugget or two from my words.
Thanks so much for listening. We really hope you enjoyed this episode and found tons and tons of useful ideas and insights for growing your own influence. Now, for those of you who want to take the next step in your influence journey, if you want to take everything you have learned today and just ramp it up a notch, or you just want to learn more about the power of thought leadership when it comes to growing a business, an enterprise, or spreading an idea, there is now also a research paper that you can download from my website, juliemasters.com. Pop in your email address. It is free. We will not spam you, but it is jam-packed full of all the ideas, tools, and case studies that I have come across in 10 years of doing this work. It's called the Influencer Code. It's not long, but it is full of value. So download it, keep it, share it, juice it for all it is worth. I hope that it makes a massive difference in your career or business. Thank you always to our producer, co-founder, and the main brain, I'm not joking, behind the Inside Influence podcast, Lauren Kelly. In the words of Jerry Maguire, you complete me. And if you did enjoy the show, then we would love you to share this podcast and leave us a review on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, whatever your platform of choice happens to be. And don't forget to subscribe to make sure that you never miss an interview.